On today's show, a new Batman will be washing his tights. Gal Gadot and The Rock team up for an action thriller, and Domhnall Gleeson. If you thought Peter Rabbit was annoying, now you got Ghost. Movie Talk starts right now. That doesn't like rabbits. Does not like rabbits.
Boil them.
That is John Rocha. He still makes rabbits too. One of the rare people still making rabbits too. That is John Rocha. Over there is Jeff Sneider. I am Mark Ellis. Welcome to Collider Movie Talk, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, do we have a story. You know, sometimes you get good stories. Sometimes you get one big story. Then other times you get a text from Mark Riley about 5 p.m. yesterday saying, we have the best movie talk I've ever seen in my entire life. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of news to talk to. Today we're going to get into all the Batman speculation. We got a cool trailer to talk about. Arachnophobia might be getting remade. Let's kick off with this, though, and that is that Geoff Johns, who you may know as the DC Entertainment President and Chief Creative Officer, is no longer that post. He is moving to a different direction, still within Warner Brothers. Basically, he's going to be writing and producing his own movies under his new banner that will be called the Mad Ghost Productions. So he's going to be working on content for film, television, that sort of stuff. And the first movie that will be produced under that banner is reported to be the Green Lantern Corps movie, something that Geoff Johns has been passionate about for a long time. Now, Geoff Johns started his career writing comic books. And then all of a sudden he was in this huge position at DC Films. So now he's no longer there. Who does DC Films get to replace him? Jim Lee, another guy who writes comic books. So this is a very interesting move in a number of different veins. And if you're trying to sort out what exactly the brass at DC are thinking, you're going to drive yourself mad and you're going to go crazy all day. So let's look at the Geoff Johns angle of this. Geoff Johns is a guy who seems to have a lot of creative energy. He wants to get a lot of projects off the ground. He's pitched in a lot of the DCEU movies to this point. So if he's moving on from his post and now he's going to be writing and producing films under his own banner, John Rocha, do you look at this as a promotion for Geoff Johns, or is this some sort of demotion where everybody's playing nice, or is it merely a lateral move from one place to another on the same lot?
Oh, yeah, I think this is a lateral move, absolutely. For him, creatively, it's a lateral move. Whatever, people can judge what it feels like to them, but I think for him, it's a lateral move. He's always been a creative guy. Even while he was an executive, he was still like writing comic books and producing these kinds of things and writing some of the scripts. So he was involved on the creative side in numerous ways, and a normal head of a studio or executive would not be involved. And so to me, that seems that he kept the door open for himself, knowing that maybe being an executive wasn't 100% going to be what he wanted to do with his life. So he moves laterally to this other place where he can create stuff and then have his own deal with Warner Brothers and DC, make a maximum amount of profit that he can, as opposed to an executive who could only get bonuses and things of that nature. It's really tough to get a piece of your movie when you're an executive. So he moves into a position I think that's more advantageous for him. And the arrows stop coming for a while, going, Geoff Johns, why I didn't get this right? Why'd you mess up Justice League? Why'd you produce this? Why'd you produce that? And now he just gets to focus on the work he wants to focus on and write the comic books he wants to focus on. And I'm looking forward to Three Jokers, which he had shelved while he was becoming an executive over at DC.
Well, yeah, the arrows stop coming, but the arrows usually stop coming if you get demoted to a different post because you weren't successful at your previous post. And I think that Geoff Johns, he does seem like a guy who's got his heart in the right place here, Jeff, and maybe he has finally landed at the ultimate place for him. So you see this as a promotion of sorts.
I think that he is better off as a writer and producer. I don't think being an executive and cooped up in an executive suite and making executive decisions and that kind of stuff is really for him, and he didn't seem to thrive in that environment. Instead of hiring people to write and produce these movies, now he gets to do it himself, and I think that there's more money in it for him. I just think people are happier when they make that transition. I think that you're going to see Sue Kroll energized, having left her marketing post at Warner Brothers and now producing. I think Amy Pascal is already happier as a producer. So I think that, this is probably in Geoff Johns' best interest.
Okay, but is his best interest kicking off with a Green Lantern Corps movie? Because I just think I know if you're passionate about Green Lantern Corps, make the movie you want to make. If you love the Fantastic Four, make a Fantastic Four movie. Both those properties seem similar to me in this respect. We've seen versions of them on the big screen recently. Audiences did not respond to them. So there is a stink on them that you have to get over, and you're always going to have to get over that if you want to make a big time movie. And maybe it's the right casting decision. Maybe it's like Aquaman, where Aquaman was always kind of a punchline. Then you cast Jason Momoa as Aquaman, and all of a sudden, oh my God, the entire thing changes around. I have a problem seeing a Green Lantern Corps movie being successful, not just because of Green Lantern and the Ryan Reynolds movie, but also just because in this DC landscape, it seems like it's very confusing what's going on there. How is Green Lantern Corps going to be able to thrive in an environment like that?
I
Jeff?
think Green Lantern Corps is the right movie to kick off with because there's nowhere you can go but up. I mean, you can't make a worse movie than that Ryan Reynolds movie, which is exactly why you try to take a character who you can rehabilitate. So I like that Geoff Johns is starting off with this one, and hopefully he does find the right director for it and the right two actors.
Rocha, you with me on this, or are you agreeing with Sneider?
Well, listen, I like the idea of a Green Lantern Corps movie. I'm a massive fan of Green Lantern, but this is dangerous. This is really dangerous because if this is how you're going to walk off out of DC or out of being an executive at DC, and then you're going to walk into creating a film that, like you said, leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and then everything you do is going to be scrutinized. Every casting decision you make, every writer you hire, every director you look at, it's going to be scrutinized. And if you don't get it right again, then you've really possibly sunk the Green Lantern IP for like decades. Because people already have a bad taste in their mouth and saw how Deadpool did, and we're like, see, Ryan was just miscast. Now he gets to escape from that. In fact, he made fun of Green Lantern in his Deadpool movies. And so when you see what's going to happen next, you wonder if Geoff Johns is going to get it right. So he, instead of walking into something smaller, maybe he's walking into a thing that's way more difficult. Because not only do you have to cast Green Lantern right, you're going to have to cast Kilowog right, Sinestro right, all these different characters that inhabit the Green Lantern Corps. You got to, if you throw in Guy Gardner, like there's so many that you can throw in there. Are you going to do Kyle Rayner? Are you going to do John Stewart? Which Green Lantern are you going to do?
It's going to be Hal Jordan and John Stewart.
Oh, you think it's going to be Hal Jordan?
I think it's going to be both.
Hal Jordan and John Stewart.
Yeah, that's why I said they're got to try to find two actors, white guy and a black guy. I don't know what else would you want him to start with? They can't all be Batman, right?
Right.
They can't all be Batman. I mean, people have been clamoring for a Man of Steel sequel forever, and I think that if you kick off with Superman, you already have a built-in Superman. I think that might be the better play. And even if that's not something he wants to do, it's something that certainly DC should focus on. And maybe when Jim Lee comes in, he's like, okay, we need to do this, this, and this, if he has the power to do so. But you bring up Batman, and that's a very interesting angle to this story. Hell, it's the headline of the show today, is that Batman is apparently going to be recast for the Matt Reeves Batman movie. I was in the audience at Hall H at Comic-Con when Ben Affleck had all this initial controversy as to whether he was going to continue to play Batman. And then he said on the stage, hey, I love Matt Reeves. I would get on the ground and be an ape for Matt Reeves. He may get the opportunity to be an ape for Matt Reeves one day. I don't think he's going to be Batman. So, Geoff Sneider, just give us a quick window into the reporting of something like this, because this was not a lead article. This was not Deadline screaming from the rooftops that Batman is going to be recast. This was a little thing at the end of the reporting of the Geoff Johns story.
That's what I find.
How does that make
so
sense?
funny when I go on the blogs and there's like, report Ben Affleck is leaving. It's like, it's not a report. It's a sentence in a report about Geoff Johns. Now I think this clearly reads as a notebook dump. This is, when you're a reporter on the front lines in this business and you get screwed on a story, as I imagine that Fleming did with the Geoff Johns story.
He's a Deadline reporter.
Right. He's over at Deadline who included that sentence in his story. I think it's pretty clear he knew what was going on with Geoff Johns. THR ended up breaking it. And at that point, if you're Fleming, you might as well just throw your hands up in the air and say, all right, well, if that's where you want, how you want to play this, then I'm going to say everything that I know. And in that report, not only did he bring up, that Ben Affleck, that they're looking to recast and this will be a standalone franchise, but he also mentioned the Kathleen Kennedy rumor, which has been going around and has been denied, which is why Collider hasn't touched it. But at the same time, it's a rumor that it does exist, and typically in this town where there's smoke, there's fire. But and we'll get to that in a bit. But I think that is why you saw Deadline write this, and in such a kind of it wasn't necessarily a definitive way, but when they're going to the trouble to address this rumor, I think that there's something to it.
Is this how DC wants their stuff to get out, though? I mean, because it seems like a lot of that kind of reports is what fuels this, as opposed to them just having a huge show and having a huge press conference and saying, hey, look, we got a new bat, we have this. This is the way that their news gets out, and it just doesn't seem to foster any sort of productive environment. It seems like that's why they're so reactionary, is because this story gets out, then we have to make this countermeasure.
Well, Rocha and I were talking about this before, though. He's not out yet. Like, they still have all these other movies. They have a Flash movie, they have Wonder Woman 2, they have Suicide Squad 2. For all we know, Ben Affleck's Caped Crusader could pop up in those. We're just talking about the Batman, and I can see how maybe they would want to start anew casting wise on that one. But to say that that we'll never see him as Batman again, I can't say that, and maybe that's why we haven't seen Warner Brothers say that either.
But Rocha, how long can you wait to make a new Batman movie when the rest of your universe seems to be reliant so heavily on one character, Wonder Woman, because everything else just doesn't get the response?
Yeah, there's so many moving pieces with this that unsettle me on so many levels because you're getting these people moving out of these positions, but they're not all at once. It's like Diane Nelson was a week or two ago. Then you had the marketing. Now you have Geoff Johns. So if you're Ben Affleck, why would I recommit to something that seems a bit unstable at this point? Let it settle in a little bit. But by the same token, why isn't Warner Brothers making very strong decisions one way or the other to be like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. You got to make bold moves. When you're playing from behind, you got to make bold moves. You got to go for that 4th and 16. You got to try to get that first down because you got to win. And so to me, I feel like Warner Brothers is from playing from behind for so long that they're just like happy doing the dump offs. And you're going, why are you doing the 5-yard out? We need to get more points. And so to me, that's what frustrates me about the situation. Either Affleck needs to step up and go, screw this, I'm not Batman anymore. Or Warner Brothers goes, yes, we're committing to a new Batman. Matt Reeves is going to be looking for this person because I think what they're doing is behind the scenes, they're auditioning actors. We heard about Gyllenhaal and other people going in to meet with Matt Reeves. They're probably looking at that, seeing what they can settle. But maybe if you're a young actor, you're like, I don't want to take advantage. I don't want to walk into this either because it's so unstable. Why would I sign on to a 3-picture deal when one film could sink me? Look at Affleck now. Affleck was on a roll.
He was on a roll.
And then, bam, the Batman movie hit and Live by Night hit around the same time. Yep. And he went right down. And it's not his fault.
And now he's doing
a
Netflix
good
stuff.
Batman.
He's doing Triple Frontier on Netflix. He's going to do Dee Reese's movie with Anne Hathaway over at Netflix. So it's like, what has sort of happened to this guy's stock?
It's a cautionary tale. Like, to be honest with you, if you're Gyllenhaal, why would you walk into that? I wouldn't.
Well, that's the thing. If you're going to recast Batman, you need an improvement over Affleck. Otherwise, why do it?
He's a good
with
Batman.
Gyllenhaal now signing on to Spider-Man, like how many guys are there on that level who haven't already played these huge superheroes who can go in and fill that cape? There aren't a lot of them.
And you can't go unknown. It has to be a splashy casting if you're going to replace Affleck, because there's a lot of people on the DC side who love Affleck as Batman.
Well, the one thing you can say, though, is that if you recast Batman, you may be retooling how old your Batman character is. I'm not saying we make him a little kid like Gotham, but I'm saying that if you make him a younger Batman, then because Ben Affleck, when he was cast as Batman, we said, oh, this is going to be an older, more grizzled veteran Batman. So if Matt Reeves wants to take the angle of rebooting not just the Batman casting, but the Batman character in general and the origin story of that, whether that's something that we need or not, that's probably the way that they would go with it.
Well, and that's the danger, right? Because they started with the Sneider vision. Sneider had all these ideas, and now they're having to readjust and refit stuff because Sneider had an idea of what he wanted to do with Superman.
Zack Snyder,
not that guy. What he wanted to do with Batman and Superman and Justice League. Sneider had a whole plan, right? So he created this Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. He purposely went for the older Batman. He purposely went to this place, and now they had to let Sneider go, and now they're in this other place where they're trying to figure out the timeline and what age Batman does. So they've really put themselves in a terrible position, and they're going to have to ask the fans to go, well, we're ignoring the timeline. We're just going to ignore the timeline.
I read a pretty interesting take today. Just wanted to address before we move on to the next item. Batman is Batman. You can't really mess with that character much. But what about Bruce Wayne? What if you took all the money away from Bruce Wayne and you made him just a normal guy?
Yeah.
And then that way Batman isn't able to have gadgets and he has to learn. I don't know. There are things that you can do to Batman to, I think, make it a little bit more interesting because it is becoming a little stale.
You take Bruce Wayne's money away, then now he's kick-ass. Now he's a kid running around.
That's a good point.
Daredevil.
I like Bruce Wayne with money. I'm sorry, Bruce. I like that your parents are dead.
Oh, Jesus.
I like that your parents died and they were billionaires and they left it to you and you got a butler named Alfred. I like all that stuff.
What if you strip that out? He doesn't have a butler. He doesn't have a Batman.
It is fair that like Nolan did it about as good as you could do a Batman origin story for that tough. Batman. But is that do you agree with Rocha that it's like it feels like it's 4th and 16 and you need a Batman or you need a Superman to come back, or is Wonder Woman enough to continue to power through and try new things like a Green Lantern Corps movie?
No, I don't think it's enough to power an entire universe. No, I think that you need to resuscitate Batman because he is down in the dumps right now, and I don't know why they haven't gone forward with a Man of Steel 2? Because I think Cavill is the good Superman.
Yeah.
I like Henry Cavill. I just don't know why they're so gun shy about doing a Man of Steel 2.
Yeah, Wonder Woman is Terrell Owens getting wide open downfield, and the rest of DC is McNabb thrown up in the huddle because they can't figure out how to get the ball to him.
Okay, so
It's
you're
frustrating.
going with the early 2000s Eagles.
I'm just saying,
reference.
it's frustrating.
Okay, maybe that's probably DC. Is that all their sports references are from 2004 when the Eagles lost to the New England Patriots
Hey-o.
in the Super Bowl. Paul McCartney did the halftime show. It was really good. So you use this term in stand-up comedy too with the term notebook dump, where like if you're on stage and you're just trying new stuff,
Right.
it's any funny idea that you wrote down and you try it and you see if it works in an audience. What was the other piece of information you mentioned? in
Right,
that
it was
notebook dump?
Kathleen Kennedy. So this was a report in the Ankler last week, and now it's clearly picked up some steam and infiltrated its way into Deadline. And Fleming was very clear in his story that it's being denied that Kathleen is not going anywhere, at least for the foreseeable future. Whether this performance of Solo exacerbates that exit. Maybe it's possible. Could she stick around through episode 9? I have no idea what the actual plan is, but it is interesting that Fleming felt the need to at least address it, even if it was to shoot it down.
Isn't it interesting? You hear the term foreseeable future, and
right.
sometimes the foreseeable future
Right.
is years and
Right.
decades down the road, and then sometimes the foreseeable future is like, I'm friends with John Rocha for the foreseeable future.
Well,
It's
yes,
just like
true.
I look at
Very
the
true.
last rumor that Fleming felt the need to address, and it was a real rumor. It was Apple acquiring A24, and if you went to Deadline on when they did a whole report saying, listen, this rumor is out there. You may have been hearing it around town, but it's not true as far as we know. That doesn't always mean that it's not true. It just means it's not true right now.
And the thing is, this is all about perception, right? Kathleen, people are like pushing back against this idea that Kathleen could go because of all the money that Star Wars movies have made. But this town is, what have you done for me lately? So yes, the first 3 movies,
Right.
great. But then Jedi really split the fandom. Solo really fell apart at the box office. So overall, that it's under your stewardship. If you're leading them, then you have to take the responsibility of it. And the thing is, they just barely, like the prequels were already, people were already having issues coming back to Star Wars because of the prequels. They loved Force Awakens. They thought this was the direction, and it steadily decreased the box office with every subsequent Star Wars movies.
Right.
That says something. That's a pattern. And I think that in this town, where there's smoke, there is fire. Possibility of it. I think it's gonna happen.
And it's not just the perception about Star Wars to fans and the quality
Right.
of the movies. It's the perception of the company to the industry.
Yes.
And, we may not have heard Lord and Miller come out bitching about their experience, but you can bet that the people in this industry have heard those stories. And so that's when I think Lucasfilm will pull the trigger on something if it seems like talent or high-profile directors are reluctant to get into business with Lucasfilm because of all the horror stories that they've heard about Kathleen and overseeing, certain filmmakers and properties.
All right, well, we will keep tabs on that story to be sure, and whatever Eagles reference Rocha wants to make for that, maybe a Ty Detmer to Fred Barnett, Calvin Williams and Randall Cunningham combination.
Well,
we are going to move on from our DC / kind of Star Wars-y story, but we're also going to talk about Gal Gadot still because she is starring in a new movie with The Rock called Red Notice. This is an action spy thriller that's going to be trekking across the globe. Gal Gadot is reported to play some sort of art dealer, which you usually get an art dealer in movies like
They're
these.
always shady.
It's been a huge bidding war. Yeah, you never quite trust an art dealer. There was a huge bidding war going all the way back to the beginning of this year for the rights to this movie, and it does appear, at least according to Deadline, that Universal Pictures won the movie after the heated battle. The film looks to be shooting in April of 2019, and it will be released on June 12th, 2020. Summer tentpole movie of 2020 is going to have to go up at some point against King Kong versus Godzilla. If that's still on track for 2020,
Yes.
but you pretty much have 2 behemoths in the world of movies right now. Gal Gadot, this is going to be the biggest starring vehicle she's been in that is not named Wonder Woman, going with The Rock, who clearly has a lot of star power behind his name as well. This thing could be huge, Geoff.
I mean, I certainly think so. Universal has high hopes for it, having shelled out for a huge package like this with Dwayne Johnson. If you're going to spend that kind of money on this script and to get, Dwayne's probably the biggest movie star in the world right now, you have to surround him with talent, and which means you have to shell out for Gal Gadot and meet her quote, which I imagine is pretty significant after these Wonder Woman movies.
So Wonder Woman and The Rock and all these, like Geoff said, you've shown out a lot of money just for the rights to make this movie, John Rocha. Are there any hesitations you have have, are there any red flags that we're not seeing?
Oh, yeah. I have massive hesitations on this. Look, Gal Gadot was great in Wonder Woman. I didn't like her in Batman vs. Superman. Didn't like her in the Fast Furious. Didn't think she stood out at all in the Fast and Furious movies. And that film with John Hamm and Zach Galifianakis.
Keeping Up with the Joneses.
Keeping Up with the
right?
Joneses was a snore. Was a bore
It's
fest.
not her fault.
Yeah, I liked her in
Listen, if you're acting in these movies, that's what I'm looking at. I loved her in Wonder Woman, but I haven't liked her in pretty much most of it. In terms as an actress, she hasn't really like lit it up for me in any of the other things I've seen her in. Now, here's a chance to go into this situation and really knock it out of the park with The Rock. Because remember, for me, she was a young actress. So maybe she was still figuring things out. With Wonder Woman, with a great director like Patty Jenkins, she really stepped up to the plate. I mean, and this is what can happen. Now, with Ross and Marshall Thurber, who also did Central Intelligence, he could possibly bring out something really good with her and the chemistry with The Rock and make it work. So I have a little trepidation, but I also trust The Rock and I trust Ross and Marshall because they've done nice work together. So I'm looking forward to see what this can happen. But this could be a Jennifer Lopez situation, right? Everybody loved her in Selena Out of Sight, but she never quite hit those heights again after having those initial hits. I think she's a great Wonder Woman. I just wonder outside of that how well she's going to be received, how well her work will be.
I'm pretty sure if Jennifer Lopez wanted to continue being an actress, she would have been just fine. I think she had other careers that she could have gone to that she did go back and forth with. She did some movies, then she became Jenny from the Block again.
Right.
And then
nobody started going to her movies. What are you talking about?
I think Jennifer Lopez is doing just fine.
Well,
I will not speak ill of J-Lo on this program. I'm going to mention The Rock's IMDb because The Rock, we know him as The Rock now, and he was a wrestler back in the day. Then when he started making movies, he had The Mummy Returns, then he had The Scorpion King, then he had something like The Rundown, Walking Tall, Be Cool, Doom. When did we start looking at The Rock as an international bankable superstar? Because it didn't happen right away. Right. You had to take time. So I think that this is another step in her career. Do you see her one day as being like the lead kind of star in a movie like what The Rock is now? The lead in a movie not named Wonder Woman?
I mean, yes, I think that she is a lead. She is building a nice brand for herself in Hollywood. I think John's right. She still has to prove to people that she can actually handle herself as a dramatic actress and not just be viewed as a sex object, essentially, on screen. I like that Red Notice is described as an action comedy because I do think that she can be funny because she plays off of people's expectations of her. So while Keeping Up with the Joneses, I agree with you, not a good movie, I actually thought she was not bad in it. She kind of delivered what was expected of her. So again, I don't know what kind of opportunities this script is going to offer her, but just a pairing with Dwayne Johnson, I think that these two could have some real chemistry together.
I think it's also a little unfair to not discount Wonder Woman because like she's great as Wonder Woman. So it's like you can't discount Wonder Woman. You can't like take away the lead thing that she's been doing right now. And another smaller movie that I think is really good that has some good acting chops from her in is 999. Not a great movie. But she was in that for a little bit. She popped in. Good dramatic movie. So I think this has a lot of, this could be the hit of 2020.
Sure.
June 12th, 2020. Keep your eyes on it. Our next story involves a movie that came out way back in 1990. Steven Spielberg produced, I believe Frank Marshall directed, I think, called Arachnophobia. It was a huge spider movie, and now it looks like it's being remade, maybe with the right guy at the helm. Deadline is reporting that Amblin and James Wan's Atomic Monster are in the early stages to reboot Arachnophobia. So basically, you get this spider from down south, and then it's in a coffin, and it hitches a ride to the United States, and it gets out, and all sorts of havoc is wreaked across a tiny town. Release date has not been set at this time. If you remember, Jeff Daniels was the loving husband of the original. John Goodman was the exterminator who stole the entire movie. First of all, gentlemen, spiders.
Terrifying.
Yes.
Terrifying.
Yes. I mean, they're kind of beautiful, the webs that they spin, but I wouldn't want to get caught up in one.
I could not care less. If a spider was right, I could not care less. Could not care less.
I would ask John to kill it for me.
Well, then I would.
I had a girlfriend in college who had a pet tarantula. I wasn't crazy. That thing got
creepy.
out one time, and I wasn't a huge fan.
I just think about Home Alone, with the tarantula on Marva's face. Yeah, no, the spiders freak me out. Any eight-legged freaks.
Don't say that around Riley. Yeah, is this supposed to excite me? I don't know. The movie's okay. I never was a big arachnophobia. Like, there's these movies that come along, and I'm like, yeah, they're fine. Arachnophobia is fine. Little Giants is fine. I guess Goonies is fine. Like it just they just don't capture my imagination. Matinee, another one. Yeah, it's fine. Arachnophobia was the same way. It was a weird kind of 90s pocket where these films were coming in and out of the theater, and they didn't attract my
Movie
attention.
did very well.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. So did
This is the perfect
a lot
property.
of other movies.
This
So
is
did the Transformers movies. So what are you telling me?
It's the perfect property for Amblin to reboot. James Wan is the perfect producer to usher that reboot through. And so it's funny, Bibiani and I, as you guys know, William, but Bibiani the Beast, we had an interesting conversation last night on Twitter about whether this is a reboot or a remake. He wanted us to get specific with our terminology. It's a remake takes all the characters, and so it's like, well, who's going to play the Jeff Daniels role and who's going to play the John Goodman role? We don't know that that's what this is. To me, it could be a remake, but until we find that out, it's just a reboot.
Yeah, a reboot would be what's the difference between a reboot and a remake?
A
Oh, please,
remake.
God, don't start this again. That Twitter thread was exhausting. Go ahead, Sneider.
I just thought it was interesting.
Go ahead.
To me, a remake takes the story and is we're going to do the same
characters
story
in the
exactly.
same town.
A reboot, all we know is that this is a spider outbreak somewhere. That's all we know about the new Arachnophobia.
I would probably guess this is going to be a reboot because I don't think that you're going to try to cast like who's going to be playing the role
Right.
of Dr. X.
Who knows
in
that
this.
it's a male lead, with Jeff Daniels. For all we know, it's a female doctor coming into a new town. So I'm just saying you can't call it a remake unless everything sort of lines up. Until then, it's just
you see how quickly we solved that, Rocha?
Yeah.
See, you
Boom.
actually
Sorry,
start,
Bibiani.
See, that's a good lesson for all the kids out there. You actually start talking to a fellow human being instead of just have a Twitter thread back and forth for hours. You can actually get stuff accomplished.
Yeah.
Our next story involves the Little Stranger trailer. Domhnall Gleeson plays a guy he's a country doctor, and he's not dealing with spiders. He's actually dealing with ghosts. He gets called to a
segue.
patient at Hundreds Hall, where a housemaid mother used to work, and he encounters the home's curious family. Weird occurrences start to follow. The Little Stranger comes out in theaters August 31st, and I believe we have already. Is that bored Jeff Sneider to death, or does he just?
This
not-
description puts me to sleep.
It's a haunted house movie, really.
I don't know. The doorbells, or,
Yeah.
the rape bells going off. The old timey setting didn't do it for me. I don't know about the pairing of Domhnall Gleeson and Ruth Wilson, and I need a little bit more bang for my buck. I like Lenny Abramson. I liked Room a lot. Frank was a weird little movie. I mean, I'll check this out because it's focused, and I think that they have good taste. But I can't say that this could compare with the
Lenny
top trailers
Abramson,
of last
who
week.
Directed Room,
Yeah.
and not The Room. John Rocha, are you as bored by this as Sneider?
I was looking forward to it because I'm a massive Ruth Wilson fan. Like, I love her to pieces, love her in everything she's in. And yet I saw this trailer and I like English. And by the way, we don't say old timey with English stuff. That's American phrases. So please, Jeff. But I like this period piece setting, but then it became the kind of just boring. And it was like, oh, who's ringing the bells? Oh my, the bells. All this kind of stuff going on. And you have the dude with the World War I injury, I think, is like, there's something bad happening in the house.
Will
There's
Poulter.
all of that. Yeah, Will Poulter, who I'm used to seeing getting his lower private parts bitten by a spider, speaking of spiders, in We're the Millers.
Oh, that's right.
But like, I was wanting more from this, especially with Charlotte Rampling in this, and of course, Domhnall Gleeson, who I absolutely love. Seeing all these good actors in this piece, and yet it bored me to tears because it didn't have that same kind of like overarching fear that you want to see from what in essence is very close to a gothic horror that you saw like in Crimson Peak, these kind of large places and
I hate
what's
Crimson
happening.
Peak, by the way.
Yeah, well, so did a lot
I
of
imagine that this movie is a slow build, and so it's hard to tease, to do a trailer for a slow build horror movie. Again, I'm going to check it out. I don't know if it is properly horror,
Yeah.
a mix of genres.
And
but
it's probably Ruth Wilson having a schizophrenic. She's probably her dead sister Susan, and she's the one doing.
it's a
probably
weak
gonna be-
teaser, and it's not the end of the world. Not the end of the world.
But when
I'll
you
see
get
it.
a teaser from a guy like
Yeah.
Abramson, where I dare say you could see a teaser for a movie like Frank, which he also directed, or Room, you're not going to get a great sense of what that movie is. It's one of those things where he might be one of those directors where you really have to investigate the actual story. So this did at least enough to make Jeff Snyder's 200 movies that he will go see this year, which the Lego Movie did not in 2014.
No, and it never will.
All right. Well, a movie that I think we're all very excited about is Taika Waititi's next film, Jojo Rabbit. We got our first official image from the movie that showcases a very interesting dinner table that would include Taika Waititi's very odd take on the character of Hitler. The movie is based on an awkward young German boy played by Roman Griffin. He's raised by a single mother that is played by Scarlett Johansson, and he has this imaginary friend that is Hitler, played by Taika Waititi. So it's a dark satire. It takes place around World War II, obviously. So it's kind of a tightrope you're walking here, but Taika Waititi is a guy that I would trust to make it from point A to point B. You see this image. This is the Hitler that you're getting in this movie, John Rocha. You read anything into it?
Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable to see it played in a certain way because it looks like he's chumming up to the kid, and we have Scarlett in a kind of a suggestive pose, from behind. It's a weird picture, to be honest with you, and it unsettles. I'm very unsettled by this project because anything that tries to humanize Hitler or make him some kind of interesting, funny guy, because it's Taika Waititi playing him. I cannot believe he'll remove all the humor or humorous moments that Hitler might have if he's playing him. So that would surprise me. So that's what scares me. The kid going through the Nazi camp and then figuring out if he should or shouldn't. And I know Taika's saying, this is going to be against racists. I can't wait to bash racists with this movie. But from that picture, it just unsettles me a little bit. And I know he's going to be fine, but you want my honest opinion, I just felt unsettled.
I obviously understand how a swastika could appear unsettling, especially in a children's film. But I think that it is important for kids to learn about the Holocaust, and I think this is a kind of interesting way to do that. He's playing Adolf Hitler as the Jojo's imaginary friend. So he's not necessarily playing a live flesh and blood Hitler who's out there killing Jews. He is a figment of this boy's imagination, and I agree with Taika. Because people have obviously been questioning that casting and whatnot. He says, "What better way to insult Hitler than having him portrayed by a Polynesian Jew?" And I think he kind of hit the nail on the head. So I'm down to see where he will take us. He's sort of earned that right to me, and I really like the cast that he's assembled. He's got Scarlett Johansson. It's always tough building these movies around kids who don't have a lot of experience, like this young actor does or does not. But like I said, he's built up some goodwill for me as a filmmaker, so I'm down to take the journey.
But sometimes we create imaginary friends to help us through. Most people create imaginary friends when they're younger to help them through tough times, to help them through figure out being alone or something. So Hitler, in essence, is going to be portrayed as some kind of thing that helps him through something, and that really does, like I said, that unsettles me. I do trust Taika, but it just unsettles me.
I think it's going to portray the way that Hitler was perceived, or the way that he was, the propaganda was making young people in Germany perceive Hitler as this great person, and so naturally a young boy might look up to somebody. Like, you may look back on a president that was sitting when you were a little kid, but when you're a little kid, all you know is that that's the president, and then you look back and you say, oh, well, they had some flaws. Obviously with Hitler, you're going to look back and say he was one of the most despicable humans to ever live. But when you're a kid, because you have this one perception, and he meets a young girl who I think is going to alter that perception, and then how does his mom navigate those waters? And like Sneider said, there's a great cast that is surrounding just these people at the dinner table. Sam Rockwell's also in this movie. Rebel Wilson, I'm very excited to see what she can bring to Jojo Rabbit. So this is a movie to keep your eye on for sure. We're going to save some time for your live Twitter questions at the end of this show. So go ahead and start tweeting us right now at Collider Video. Use the hashtag Collider Movie Talk. We do love your fan participation, and I think we're going to get to do that in a whole new way on Thursday. Thursday, we're going to do an episode of Movie Talk, but it's going to be from our new podcast studio. They're literally putting carpet in it and soundproofing the room right now. So it's going to be a podcast version, but you can watch it streaming here. You don't have to change anything. You, the dear viewer, doesn't have to change your habits at all. You come, you watch, but if you want to participate, you can be a little more active, because we do believe you're going to be able to call into the show. So if you want to call in, it's going to be like a fun radio show. Call in and we can talk movies. Going to have a bunch of guests join me in the podcast studio. So keep your eye on Thursday's edition of Movie Talk. Speaking of Thursday morning, I'm going to be breaking some very exciting news about Comic-Con. It's like a scoop or anything. It's not like, oh, Godzilla's going to be appearing at Comic-Con, but I have some cool Comic-Con news. So if you're in San Diego, make sure you're watching Thursday's show and follow me on Twitter at Mark Ellis Live. Okay, we are covering E3 for Collider Games. It's our new channel, so make sure that you guys are subscribed to Collider Games as well as right here at Collider Video. Jeremy Johns is back in Los Angeles for 1 week only. I mean, he'll probably come back again. He loves California Pizza Kitchen. So him and Perry Nemiroff are working hard on the floor of E3, covering all the cool events, all the latest games, all the breaking news. Is that Pamela Horton I saw too? It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Make sure you guys subscribe to Collider Games for all the latest. Hearing a lot of things. This is so weird for me because I actually watch these news vids and I learn so much about video games because I'm not in that world, and it's so weird to be on Twitter and to feel like I'm involved in most things that happen on Twitter, whether it's movies or sports or politics. With video games, I just have no freaking idea what the hell's going on. So
I'm with you. What is Fortnite? I play NBA Jam.
NBA Jam is great. Have you heard of homage T-shirts or homage T-shirts? Mm-hmm. They have great. It's this company that started in Ohio, and they have a lot of great retro.
Boom shakalaka! I have that shirt actually.
Yeah.
So
you have an homage shirt.
I have heard it.
All right. We also want to remind you guys that Collider Heroes went up yesterday, an all-new episode, and it will be tomorrow. And we have a new Schmodown that is going to be dropping today. It's the match between the Shire Wolves in Action dropped on Friday. Then we have a new Schmodown that is not part of the live one, is going to be dropping later on this very day. Okay, we're going to move on to some live Twitter questions. John Rocha, why don't you kill some time for me while I pull up the latest?
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that Ghost of Tsushima gameplay trailer, I posted it on my Twitter this morning, speaking of games. It was incredible. I was a guy who had Shogun Total War for numerous years, played it on the computer, and then to see something like this that essentially evokes the greatest Kurosawa samurai films, go and download it. I think Michelle Yao plays the female samurai that's in this gameplay trailer. It's 8.5 minutes. It is so worth your time if you're a fan of film, if you're a fan of acting. It's incredible what these video games are doing. And every once in a while, I'm like Ellis, I don't play them much anymore. And like Sneider, I play FIFA more so than anything else. And so that's the only one I get every year. But in the old days, I used to collect them all and play them all. But as you get older, you run out of time with all these other responsibilities you're doing. But occasionally one game breaks through. This one broke through for me. I'm definitely going to buy it. And Sony, kudos for that incredible gameplay trailer.
Do I get a free plug too, Mark?
I mean,
I'm not plugging anything I'm doing.
I was really just using Rocha to kill time to get Twitter
fair
questions.
enough.
But if you want to mention something,
I just want to say, if you're looking at the news these days and you see Trump and Kim Jong-un, you're like, what the hell is going on? How do I make sense of this world? Go see the Mr. Rogers documentary. Won't You Be My Neighbor? Just a really wonderful, pleasant movie. Back to you, Mark.
Thank God Dennis Rodman was there to keep everything under control. We have a lot of cool Twitter questions right now. The first one comes from Chris El Guapo, and he says, with E3 causing nerdgasms around the world right now, what single announcement at a con, any con in the history of cons, got you the most excited? You think of like one just like mic drop moment at a convention that you're like, I can't believe this is happening. What you got?
When I took the hood off Dan Murrell, that was the greatest moment at a con for enforcement. No,
it wasn't really a convention.
I think it was when being in the room when they announced the slate for Marvel at the El Capitan. When they announced the slate and put that up, people were like, it was like monkeys in a zoo. They were like climbing all over each other and throwing feces and eating bananas and going crazy. And it was great to be a part of that. And also, I think the Hall H moment when all the Avengers came out, I was so awesome to be there with Loki, with Tom Hiddleston dressed as Loki gear, coming out doing what he's doing, then having the Avengers come out after him and come out and line up. People were going insane for it. Everybody's 10-year-old dream coming true right in front of them.
All right, Jeff Sneider.
What's a con?
Jesus
you're hard to face. Is there? Have you ever come across in your days of reporting like a piece of news that you're like, I can't believe either I get to report this or I'm breaking this or like something like you're just holding it in? Because I feel like a lot of times reporters, you learn stuff before you're allowed to break it, and so it's kind of like you just eternally have that what you're giving somebody for Christmas feeling.
I mean, when I broke the news that Jason Momoa is going to be the Crow, I was like, I can't believe it. I had 15 Crow posters in my room, and now I'm breaking the news of the new Crow. And then, of course, that movie isn't going to happen. Jason Momoa is not going to be the Crow, so I'm back on the hunt.
Just the jaded
They dashed my dreams. All I needed was to just go into production.
To answer your question, for me personally, it was Batman v Superman. When we were there at Comic-Con and that announcement happened, first of all, it broke. But back when the schmozno.com was like breaking movie news, we were one of the first ones was a report on that, and that thing just blew up. It literally like crashed our server. But just the news that Batman v Superman was happening, you had the Superman with the red eyes looking down at Bat. It was just like it's one of the coolest things I'd ever heard. And it's before you actually start to process, and you're like, well, wait, does this even make sense in the timeline, or should we be doing a standalone Batman movie first, or whatever? Just Batman versus Superman was so freaking exciting to hear. A couple movie questions as far as upcoming films and where their status is at. Luis A. Rivera, who has one of my favorite Twitter handles of all time, it's at shit. He says, any Knight Rider news? Is there a rebooting Knight Rider?
Can I take this one?
Yeah.
No.
No Knight Rider news.
No.
Okay. Let me throw another one at you.
Sorry, Luis.
Yeah, Luis probably saw that and said, shit. Alan the Ace says, what's the latest news on a remake or sequel to The Last Dragon? Anything there?
What?
That's Rocha.
Look, I was at a premiere for this Golden Feet thing that Oliver Stone's son is in, which was kind of a debacle. But the guy from The Last Dragon was there. What's his name? Taika? I forget what the guy's name, the actor. He was there. He looks great. He could absolutely do a reboot as like the teacher or whatever of the new Last Dragon. But it'd be hard to cast Sho'nuff. You got to find the right actor to do Sho'nuff. Sho'nuff is not an easy person to. You want to talk about trying to find the right Batman? Try to find the right actor to play Sho'nuff. That is not easy. So I mean,
I don't even know what the Last Dragon is.
Oh my God,
no
Barry
idea.
Gordy's the Last Dragon. You don't know? Well, we'll see what happens with that. But I'd be surprised. There doesn't seem a big call for martial arts movies now, so it'd be surprising if they did one like this.
All right, Jonathan Peck closes us out here today, and he says, with The Incredibles 2 coming out this weekend, which both of you have seen?
Yeah.
And you guys...
Big thumbs up.
Big thumbs
Massive.
up. Okay, so what should Brad Bird's next project be? Because Brad Bird, he obviously did the first Incredible. He's worked on a number of animated movies, and then he did Ghost Protocol. That was great. And then he's being looked at for the Star Wars movie, for Force Awakens even. Then he decides to do Tomorrowland instead. And then goes back to Incredibles 2. So what should his next project be? Rocha, you're really... Wow, this is...
I think I have an answer for this. Rocha, do you want to go first or no? You need some time?
No, yeah, I need some.
I mean, I'd like Brad Bird to tackle his 1906 script, right? That's like about the big earthquake. Is that in San Francisco?
It's been announced. I mean, it's on his slate for. It's not going to come out later this year, but yeah, that's the only announced Brad Bird project.
Right. I always was fond of that one, and I hope that he gets a chance to do it. He's certainly earned it, and after Incredibles comes out and is a huge hit, he'll have a ton of cachet to go and do something like that. He did have a quote this week where he said, "I don't want to do any of the sequels that people have been clamoring for," and I'm happy about that. I don't want to see a sequel to Ratatouille or the Iron Giant. We don't want to.
You want to see an earthquake movie? Just
but see, no, but the way that Brad Bird would do it wouldn't just be San Andreas and The Rock and it's everything is crumbling around you. Right. I think this would really look at the humanity around an earthquake, maybe like a human drama. Imagine like Backdraft, but with an earthquake. That sounds interesting to me.
Reference a good movie, then maybe I could be excited.
You like Backdraft?
That's terrible. That movie. You're out of your mind.
Ron Howard,
You're
one of
out
his
of your
most
mind.
beloved movies.
Speaking of Ron Howard, here's my the reason I was stressed out about it is because I don't know if I should say, I don't want people to get upset, but like
You already shit on Backdraft.
and Arachnophobia. But if Kathleen is going to step down or whatever happens there, that everyone saves face doing it, and new people step in, I think Rian Johnson's trilogy is dead. So I think that's where Brad Bird should go. Brad Bird has the capability to create a trilogy that we would all be obsessed for, and it would be all new characters. It wouldn't be a sequel, so you could satisfy him in both ways. One, he wanted to do an original project. That's great, but to do in the confines of a franchise like Star Wars that really ignites the kid stuff that he does really well in Incredibles and takes advantage of the action stuff, which he does really well in Mission Impossible. Yeah. And the great scripts that he's able to churn out and do. And I think that's where Brad Bird could be really well used, is in a trilogy for Star Wars to bring people back into the fold and show show the fans who've been kind of hesitant now after these last 2 movies that, hey, we hear you, we understand you, we're going in the right direction with these kind of people.
I just want to see him do something original. He's so talented.
Well, it would be original Star Wars because it wouldn't.
They can get
have
anybody to
be-
do these Star Wars movies, as
Clearly, you
as
can't
we've
get
proven.
anybody.
Okay, well then I will meet you guys halfway and help out my buddy Luis and say Brad Bird should do a Knight Rider remake or reboot. I'll let Bibiani and Sneider figure out which version of Knight Rider to do. That
God.
does it for us here on Collider Movie Talk. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. PST, right here on Collider Video. Then, like I said, Thursday you're going to be able to call in and chat directly to us. Plus, some cool Comic-Con news. See you guys tomorrow. Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.